I kinda like it when wrestling goes bad. You can't expect it to be good all of the time, so at least when it does fall off a cliff, we can have a good laugh. Apart from when some promotions go too far, but they can never help themselves. Part of our retro journey too, we are gonna go back to the year 2000 here, which is one of the most successful 12 months ever for WWE, and that does prove all of this. Taste is right down to you, and you alone. However, I am Simon Miller. Let's go. Number 10, Chris Jericho and Chyna are the co-champions. So we get to the asterisks right away, because personally, I thought this was super fun in the goofiest way possible. It was also a smart way to get Chyna into the men's division, and never forget she did change the game. So even if some of this did go wonky, well, the overall idea was solid, kinda. This is a voted on list though, so I shall concede, and yeah, it was these two becoming the Intercontinental Champion at the same time, which on paper is absurd. You can't argue that. I mean, imagine it in any other sport. You can't, because it actually makes no sense. It was proper Vince McMahon booking though, because on the 30th of December 1999 SmackDown, they both pinned each other, so come the next Raw, they both got the belts. And why didn't the powers that be just get them to have a rematch? Good point, I don't know. They were now frenemies too, with the added stipulation that if one lost, they both lost, therefore through gritted teeth they had to help each other. I mean, it is so far-fetched. How can you not like it just a little bit? It didn't last long, as by the Royal Rumble, Hardcore Holly was thrown in for some reason, with Jericho winning that triple threat match, and many saw this as the writing team throwing in the towel. I'm sure maybe it was, but really I don't know how long it could have gone anyway. Chris also wasn't the biggest fan of this, as he wrote about in his book. He even got in trouble because he laid in his strikes as he would with anybody else, and he accidentally gave Chyna a black eye. Whoops. Number 9, the King of the Ring evening gown match. This one was terrible. Anything clothes related in wrestling usually means something awful is about to happen, and this was proof. For whatever reason, WWE wanted to push it as far as they could though, so yep. At the 2000 King of the Ring, Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson participated in this madness. Now we do have to say fair play to the Stooges. They are a highlight of the Attitude Era, but remember, fans paid for this. If you want to do it on Raw, fine, but a pay-per-view? I mean, good grief, what are we doing? It also totally fails the whole would you watch this with a non-wrestling fan test, and yes, it's not meant to be taken seriously, but it's just so bad. Even me, the protector of goofy wrestling for life, gets secondhand embarrassment watching it, and some of the gags made as well. Good grief, they do not care. The show is mostly remembered for Kurt Angle's momentous win and that mad six-man for the WWF title, and while any good card should have variety, this was not it. If you had started watching for Stone Cold Steve Austin, this may have had you second-guessing your choices. Why are two elderly men trying to rip dresses off each other? You know what, let's just move on. Number 8, the WrestleMania Hardcore Madness. This is so good once you learn the facts, because then you can go back and watch it. I mean, it kind of makes sense. WrestleMania 2000 did have a hardcore match that featured almost everybody, including Bradshaw, Farouk, Joey Abs, Funaki, Taz, the Headbangers, and Viscera. I mean, what a lineup. It was 15 minutes of madness, and I suppose because of this, the finish went flying out the window. Hardcore Holly wasn't meant to walk back through the curtain with his namesake title, but he did. It was likely due to the fact that, much like the division, this belt changed hands in the match around about 78 times, with the idea when the time limit expired, Crash Holly would have found a way to steal it back. Or at least use those final seconds to hold on to the belt while we all thought he was going to be screwed. I suppose because it was a real clock, the threat was always there, and yet when we got to 0, Bob hadn't lost it yet, and you can see in everybody's faces they've made a huge mistake. The referee even runs around trying to sort it out. The upside was it was the hardcore title, so as per Bruce Pritchard on his podcast, Vince McMahon wasn't overly mad. It is a mess though. Although there is an element of fun to it, it's just really, really nuts. Number 7, Chester McCheeserton. One day Vince McMahon woke up and decided Steve Blackman needed to show more personality. And of course he had a template for that. Put Steve in a tag team with somebody who was super over the top, and the rest will just figure itself out. He did this all the time. Goldust and Booker T are a great example of it, and in terms of Blackman, we did it with Al Snow. Now the skits they were in were suitably stupid, so you couldn't really call them bad, but the name was Head Cheese. I don't know how we got there, but they had a mascot too, Chester McCheeserton. Remember when Steve Austin talked about the names he got sent for the Stone Cold character? It feels like this struck again. Their new buddy debuted at WrestleMania 2000 when Head Cheese faced Tested Albert, and it was not great. The main reason being that Chester was obsessed with Trish Stratus. What the hell are we doing? We never saw him again after this too, and if the powers that be in 2000 knew it was bad, sheesh, that's awful because so much terrible stuff got the green light. I mean, there's a reason you don't hear about it a lot today. Also, he was called Chester McCheeserton, and that is actually lame. Number 6, Kane unmasked for some reason. When Kane ripped his mask off in 2003, I think there was an air of confusion. Not only did he seemingly have coal rubbed on his face because fire, but he had a very strange haircut. I mean, what happened to the burns and scars that we've been told for years were the reason for the mask? Well, don't worry about it. WWE was going to go with psychology issues. Okay, the reason we talk about it for the year 2000 is because it was during this time period where Kane actually did the same. At SummerSlam, after he and brother The Undertaker had whipped each other's ass, the dead man pulled that thing right off his skull. Kane even ran away terrified that anybody would see he was just wearing dark makeup, I suppose, and then we never talked about this again. I mean, it sort of felt like it should have been some story point. And where did he get a replacement from too? WWE shop? Or does he just have an assortment of them bought by Paul Bearer? Afterwards, it was said that Taker did this by accident, but go and watch it. The Phenom looks pretty happy about this to me. I think it was just one of those angles we did at a show so we could have a finish, but we didn't want fans to overthink this, so we just never talked about it again. Imagine that in any other TV show. Remember that plot point we just gave you? Well done, thanks. It's dead. Number 5, Triple H returns and he's alive. You likely all remember this, or at least have seen the clip. On a SmackDown in November 2000, Steve Austin trapped Triple H in his limo and dropped the car from the top of a crane. The fall was huge, and no way could any human survive this. I will go as far to say it was literally impossible. Stephanie McMahon on the following Raw even broke down, saying her husband was in dire straits when he returned to TV a few days later and he didn't even have a scratch on him. Like, we didn't even give him a plaster. Even during the madness that was the Attitude Era, this was preposterous. It got even more confusing because the reason Austin was so angry at the game was because he ran him over in a vehicle at the Survivor Series. That took the rattlesnake out for months, and yet here Triple H was Wolverine, so back to front. I can't even imagine what you thought if you only just started watching wrestling. How were you meant to react to anything if they could all just move on at a moment's notice? Can sum up in 2 words: really silly. Number 4, Naked Mideon. So we have talked about this before, but because I was such a young pup when Naked Mideon debuted, I just thought it was the most ridiculous thing ever, so I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Even more so because he was still using that name, which was meant to be his character as a reincarnated member of the Ministry of Darkness. And now, he was running around without clothes. You think The Undertaker would have said something. It was the 28th of August Raw when he did arrive, when he ran down the ring during an Al Snow and the Cat versus Terry Runnels and Perry Saturn match. I mean, that alone. The commentators reacted to this like he was on drugs too. It just made you feel like you lost your mind, and maybe he had as well. Amazing Naked Mideon even worked the No Mercy pay-per-view in October when he faced William Regal for the European title. I mean, how he earned that shot, I don't know, but Regal was at least the right dude, if anybody understands goofiness in wrestling. Soon after, surprise, surprise, the whole thing was just dropped. I think WWE must have still liked the idea though, because in 2003, Brian Kendrick did the same. TV fans thankfully were saved from this. I presume those in the arena got to see as much as wrestling wanted to share. So as always, don't you tell me the industry was different back in the day. Exactly the same? Stupid. Number 3, the bizarre Radicalz booking. So this kind of makes more sense in hindsight because we all learned throughout the years Vince McMahon hated WCW so much that when any of their guys came through the door, they would have to be punished for a while. Once again, that was stupid too. That's all there is to it. Now, World Championship Wrestling were foolish because they had annoyed Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, Chris Benoit, and Dean Malenko to such a degree they were going to go to the WWF no matter what. Benoit even got crowned the WCW champion to stop this. He didn't care, he was done. The Radicalz, as they were called, turned up in the WWF audience to create some real noise when on the 3rd of February SmackDown, Triple H gave them the opportunity to win contracts. If they could be victorious in the majority of their matches this evening they're in, then these 4 lost every single bout. I mean, that is kind of hilarious. Malenko was beaten by X back in 4 minutes, Guerrero and Saturn lasted the same time against the New Age Outlaws, and Triple H himself did away with Benoit. Screw you, WCW. Of course, the argument was that if a WWF guy lost to an Invader, the WWF would look weak. It's mad booking, which ruined the Invasion angle too. Fans all knew they had signed already. It didn't take a genius. Nobody was going to look down on you. Thankfully, Mick Foley went out of his way to endorse them on TV, but that didn't balance the books. It was just telling you what was going to happen a year later. It really was a shame. Number 2, Rikishi did it for The Rock. I mean, we have to talk about it and forget 2000s. It was one of the worst heel turn justifications WWE has ever done, even if the thought process was right. Here's the deal. Rikishi was so over during this period, he had to get a push. Why a heel turn was planned, I don't know, because nobody wanted to boo him, least of all the fans. They love the guy. But after that hit and run on Austin we've talked about already, the big reveal was Quiche and his explanation that he did it for The Rock. This then got worse as he insinuated the Great One deserved more opportunities, and the reason he wasn't getting them could be racially motivated. Not only did The Rock himself push back on this, but the facts actually said otherwise. By 2000, the Great One was already a multiple-time world champion, so what was this dancing man talking about? It went so badly, WWF dropped the whole thing, and yep, they moved Triple H to the position instead, which is when he almost got killed from a crane. On paper this may have read well, but in practice it was so nuts and didn't help anyone. Poor Rikishi then got moved down the card, and he never got his momentum back. That's bad. Number 1, Mae Young gives birth to a hand. That's right, the year 2000, when WWE was on fire and smashing records, was also when Vince McMahon decided to have 80-year-old Mae Young give birth to a hand. A quarter of a century later, and I'm still not over it. The hell was this? It was the 28th of February Raw, though, and yeah, we had elderly Lady Mae in a relationship with Mark Henry, who somehow got her pregnant. If you've done biology, you get that doesn't add up. And yet it wasn't a baby that popped out, it was a hand. And I mean that literally. Go and look at your wrist. You see what's attached to it? That thing. It really does feel like this was done for 2 reasons, the first of which was a punchline. At the end of the segment, we all had to give Mae Young a hand, or a round of applause. That's what somebody said, flub right off. The second we found out years later, because apparently Gerald Briscoe did not have a strong stomach for gross things, so we booked him in an angle to see if he'd vomit for real. Let's say that he did do that. Who wants to watch it? Which fan was that gonna be for? So this was dreadful and a great example of why the Attitude Era wasn't all peaches and cream. Terrible, awful, bad, horrendous. Let's never do this again. No of the other awful moments of the year 2000, especially because it was such a successful year for WWE. Well, make sure you drop me a comment in the comments below. That was a stupid thing to say. Before you like the video, share the video, and damn it, subscribe. You can also click the video on the screen to get even more wrestling information in your life, but otherwise, my friends, make sure you have a terrific day. I'll talk to you again soon.